Lyris is and what it's used for, and some examples of where departments or schools are using Lyris today. So Lyris basically is a mailing list service, meaning that I can have an email address that when I send to that email address, it automatically will deliver that message to a number of other individuals rather than a one-to-one relationship. So if I'm in Outlook, I can create a local distribution list and add as many people as I want just in Outlook, and then I can use that, send to one email address, and it delivers to everyone. The limitation is that I'm the only one who can use that distribution list because it's stored within my Outlook account. Another option that we do have here at SMU is for Exchange distribution lists, and you'll see many of those in webmail. I'm going to log in real quick. But in your address book, if you just look in the address book, you'll see some of these distribution lists. So this is one 2014 AAPD distribution list. You'll see all the members there as well. The Exchange distribution lists are available in the global address list, but they are unique to SMU. So all of your recipients must be at SMU, have SMU email addresses in order for the Exchange distribution list to exist and work. So that's where Lyris comes in. It allows a little bit more flexibility with the distribution lists. It will not appear in your global address list, so people will have to know the email address. But I can subscribe SMU addresses, Google addresses, external addresses, whomever I want. It's not just restricted to the SMU community to use. To send to the list, I still just pull up an email and type in the list name at list.smu.edu and send, and it's good to go. So that's still fairly easy. So let's go in and show you when you request a Lyris list. I'll take you to that interface real quick. It's going to ask for a bunch of questions, like what type of list do you want? Do you want an announcement list or a distribution list? And we're going to cover what the differences are in just a second. But the request form is out here on help.smu.edu. And I believe it's under additional services, mailing list requests. And you'll see under the required fields, it does ask you for the list type, announcement, moderated discussion, or open discussion. So let's jump right in to those three configurations, and I'll go ahead and log into Lyris to show you kind of the administrative side of where that's all controlled. So if you go to list.smu.edu, that's our service page to actually get to the interface. You'll notice I'm using my email address as a username, and I'm going to use a unique password. It does not use your SMU ID and password combination. What we're looking at is the administrative side of the application. Once the list is created, most of the time you don't have to come out here to the admin side. But if you want to add a bunch of members, delete members, check on the status of some mailings, see who got the mailings, that kind of stuff, you'll find all of that through list.smu.edu. So let me show you, oh goodness, I just lost my screen here. What happened? Okay, technical difficulties. Let me just log in again. I don't know where that went. Okay. All right. So an announcement list, and I'm going to show you here under list settings. There's a security feature that says only admins can send. That's typically what would be configured for an announcement list. It means a certain group of approved individuals, the administrators of the list, can send emails to the list. If I'm just a list member and I respond to and try and send an email to the full list, it will not be delivered, it will be rejected. So that's one of the first settings for an announcement list. For the discussion list, then you have two options. Obviously, it would not be limited to just admins, anyone can send. And then I have an option of, do I want to restrict the sending to the list to only members, or can anyone? So we do have some lists. For example, my help desk team has a list that anyone can use for informational purposes. So they don't have to be part of that list to notify the full team. Or I have some closed lists that are used that only members can contribute. So it's for the discussion, particularly like in a class setting. We have a lot of faculty who have class lists, and they use that discussion feature to allow classmates to communicate with each other from one easy email address. A couple other addresses or uses for Lyris. We've got a lot of schools that use it to communicate with their math majors, let's say, or math minors, or certain programs. The MBA program uses it heavily. We've got some academic committees that use it. We also have some research projects going on all over the country that use Lyris to facilitate the discussion. If I click up here to change which list I'm looking at, you'll notice we've got thousands of lists configured out here on Lyris. We've got some student organizations. I know the Chi Omega House is one that uses them for all their pledge classes. So lots of different uses for both the announcement as well as the discussion lists. So once you've requested the list and specified how you want it configured, the help desk will assist you in loading that list for the first time. And I just want to show you how easy that is. So the help desk will come out and we'll kind of configure the basics in terms of, can admin send, the approval if you want moderated messages or not. I typically recommend don't moderate the messages. It's just more work for you to go and approve each posting. And then there's a couple other modifications we can make to the list. Under header rewrites, this is a popular one. When the email is sent, by default, the to field will be the name of the list. So for example, HD Upgrade is the name of this particular list that I'm looking at. If I sent an email to hdupgrade@list.smu.edu, it would come across to all the recipients with the to field being HD Upgrade. If I want it to be a little bit more personalized so that maybe they don't know it's part of a list, I can change it here in the to field and say I want it to be their email, or I want it to be their email address or their name. So you have a couple of different options here. I can also control the reply to. So by default, if I don't specify author here, it would try and reply to the entire list. So I usually specify author if I want to control the discussion a little bit more, so that when a user receives the message and they hit reply, it automatically just is routed back to the author of the message. A couple other features that we are able to kind of modify. I showed you the ability to control who can send to the list. Another one is the message size limit. So we tend to limit them by default to just 1 or 2 megabytes per message. You can control this and make them much larger if you have a lot of attachments that you tend to send through to your list, but that is a setting you can kind of control. You also can control how many messages are sent to a list on a particular day. We have it set at 300 by default. Any more than that is a little crazy, but you can modify that based on your needs. So let me show you how easy it is to add somebody to the list. So I'm going to come up here on the Members tab, and I'm going to add members. I can add a single member, or I can add many members. And I have a spreadsheet here with a bunch of email addresses. So I'm just going to copy those. You'll notice these are all SMU addresses, but they don't have to be. As I mentioned before, it can support external addresses. And I can just paste, and I can click Save. I was already on that list, so let's try that again. Add many members, and I need to remove my address. Here I am. And then click Save. So very simple to add a bunch of members to the list. While I'm viewing the list, I can use this drop-down menu to kind of filter who's on my list. So I can show who's the admin on the list, and you'll see that I am an administrator. I'm going to go back to show all list members, and let's say this is a closed list, so only an admin can send to it, and I want to make somebody a new admin of that list. So I'm going to choose Abby's address right here, and I'm going to type in her name. So there are 3 fields required for an admin: the email address, the name, and then this list admin tab has to be set to yes. And I'm sorry, there's a 4th. They also have to have a password, and this is a local password that's stored just in Lyris. One key note, though, if you're doing a closed list like this and you're going to control who can send, the email address has to be in the format @mail.smu.edu. Otherwise, Lyris is not going to recognize that that's the same address. So if it's at smu.edu, it's not going to work for a closed list. So I'm going to save that and click OK. And if this was a closed list, you'll now see that Abby Kinney is one of the admins. And then she would have the ability to send to the list. All right, so let's look at some more settings. When I send to the list, I'm going to see a lot of times you'll come out here to check the status of a message. Was it delivered? Was it delivered? What time it was delivered, and who received it? Did it fail to anybody? So under the mailings, mailing status, and mail queues, you'll see I have an incoming and an outgoing mail queue. In the incoming mail queue, you'll see I have a couple of messages already out here from a recent upgrade that we did. So Lyris receives it, and you'll see at the bottom this transaction log. This is what I use to kind of troubleshoot any issues. At the very bottom of that log, it should say it was queued for all the members, and then it's done. If it doesn't say it was ever queued, then we've got another problem going on, typically with that email address format not being correct. Once it goes from the incoming queue, though, we can go to the outgoing queue. Again, click on the message. You'll see the message both in HTML as well as a text preview. And I can also view the receiving details, so I can see how many recipients it was sent to, how many successfully received that message right here. If not all were successful, so I can see, oh, I deleted all the members. That's why this is not showing the detail. Normally you would see all the email addresses, but I cleared out this list. If there were any errors in sending, there would be other buttons here. It would show, so many were, so many failed, and it would tell you why it failed, if the server wasn't responding or if it was a bad email address. So you can kind of troubleshoot, who received it and where there are issues. There's also some settings in the list that if I send to an address 5 times and it's not a good address and it keeps bouncing back, it'll automatically remove that person from the list. So I don't necessarily have to come out here and kind of keep the list up to date and accurate and all that kind of stuff. Another option I should show you is the subscriber policy. So there are a couple of options for how people can join your list. If you have it wide open, anyone can join and there's no approval. That's fine for most content, but you have to be aware that anyone in the world means spammers can also join that list as well. So you do have to be careful with that. But basically, to join a list, a user can just send an email to join dash and then the list name at list.smu.edu. So for example, again, my list name is HD Upgrade. If you wanted to join that list, you could send an email to join-HD-upgrade at list.smu.edu, and you would automatically be added to the list. So that's how members can subscribe. Private means that only an admin can add members to the list. So you can control who's on your list and be responsible for populating that list. If it's private, a user can send the join request via email, and then you would get a notice saying, hey, so-and-so wants to join your list. Do you approve? And you can approve that via email or to log in to this interface and approve those. Until they're approved, they will not receive the messages sent to your list. A closed list, only you as an admin can add new members, and you come in here or you send an email command, which I'll get to in a moment, and then you can add members to the list. And the password option, you can set a password that they have to know in order to join. Our most popular ones, really, in terms of the configuration, are either wide open or closed, where you control the full membership of the list. All right. I mentioned a lot of this can be done via email. If we go to our website, and actually in your resources tab, on the training under materials, you'll see the links for the mailing list overview page and the email commands. I'm going to show you real quick here. As an admin, you can send an email command to Lyris to add a member, remove member. There's a bunch of options for reviewing all the members of your list, that kind of stuff. So it can be done from Outlook where you never even come out here to Lyris to log in and do the administration. That gets a little bit more convoluted. I find the interface a little bit easier, so I usually just come out here. But there are instructions out here if you want to do that. Do we have any questions while I'm looking through my list real quick? You can use that chat feature at the bottom if you have a question about Lyris. All right, I'm going to keep going. Let's go back to the home. If I administer several lists, when I log in, it'll show me the last list that I accessed. So I can maneuver between the multiple lists that I have. I've got a ton of lists. I also see all the lists that are out here. So I can choose any one of these. I click on that little link on the top right. It'll take me to all the different lists. Let me just pick one of the honors programs list just for fun. In the dashboard, it would show me if there were any mailings recently and some of the reports about that mailing in terms of deliverability. The other thing I can also do is you'll see I can export the members at any time. On the top right, you can click that Excel and export the members to Excel, so you can download the history there. Let's look at, let me go back to another list that I know has some good emails coming through, and I'll show you some reports. So Lyris gives you some reporting options for your list in terms of, okay, new members, unsubscribes. We do not, although it has the ability in the software to do click-throughs and campaigns, marketing campaigns, and all of that kind of stuff, we are actually not licensed here at SMU for those features. So it won't track how many people open the message and what links did they click in the message, because that's just not part of our current license. But you can see how many messages were received on a regular basis, when were they sent. This is a static list where the membership never really changes, but you would have a graph here of, you know, as people subscribe or unsubscribe, and some delivery statistics. So that's some of the reporting capability. I think that's about all I wanted to show you. You can, the other question I do get asked sometimes is just to have reports delivered on a regular basis. So if you're doing some marketing type emails that you're sending to lists, and you want to have the report of delivery sent to you about an hour after that, to say, so you don't have to come out here and find out was it delivered to everybody on the list. You could have those reports set up to automatically send to you. The other option that's used quite heavily, especially in some of our departmental programs, are the nested list feature. So basically I can have, I'll use the Chi Omega list as an example. So for the entire house, they have the Chi Omega at list.smu.edu. They also have a list for each pledge class that just has the members on separated by pledge class. On that parent list, the Chi Omega at list.smu.edu, all of those other sub-lists are actually subscribed to the parent. So you can have that kind of relationship where it segments out part of your population, but it gives you the ability to send to the full group as well. That setup's a little bit trickier. That's definitely something the help desk would want to set up. There's lots of little checkboxes that need to be in place for it to work correctly. But we have several programs. The MBA program uses that heavily. The law school uses that heavily. As I mentioned, the Chi Omega House uses it heavily. Several student orgs use it as well. The only requirements in terms of can I have a list, it has to be a faculty or staff requesting, or if it's a student organization, we just require that a faculty or staff advisor, whoever the advisor is for that org, request it. Other than that, you can have the list. We'll create it real quick. It just takes a few minutes, and then you're up and running. So last call for questions. If you have any, just type them at the bottom. And otherwise, I